Join Cynthia Alice Anderson for a special one-night-only online event, the Yeshua Dialogues, Monday, June 8th from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Registration is $50 at cynthiaaliceanderson.com.
If you're new to our show and you've been wondering, does God exist? The short answer is yes. But I don't want you to just believe me. I want you to find out for yourself. Hello and welcome to the Experience of the Soul podcast. My name is Cynthia Alice Anderson. I'm the host. I am the owner and founder. I'm also lovingly known as RCA. I'm the woman of many names. But my friends, we welcome you to our very first show in the new studio. Excited to have you along the journey with us. And frankly, we are super, super honored with your trust and your love and your support of us. And of course, I want to introduce my producer who's right here by my side today, Mr. Sean Kilgore.
Hello, everybody. Happy and blessed to be here. Really excited about this new direction that we're moving in this brand new studio. So welcome, everybody. This is episode 415 of Experience of the Soul.
Wow.
Does God exist? It's going to be a good one.
This is going to be a good one.
It's going to be a good one. But we're so glad you're here. So again, my name is Sean Kilgore. I'm lovingly known as SRK.
We're going to make that thick. SRK.
I received an email from Mary Wanzer at Unity Daytona Beach, and she started the email SRK. I was like, it's working.
It's working.
You must have listened.
I love it. Well, we are having a lot more listeners in this area now. Now that I'm based over here, you're over here more. And I love making connection with business owners. And my friends, where we are, even this studio is based out of a building called the Workspace Collective. And there are people from all different fields working under the same space. I got my coffee from a guy who's independent, and it's a wonderful space. It's about people coming together to do what they love to do. And, believing in their spirit to be able to succeed. So I love being in a space like that.
There's a great energy here. When you walk in here, it is, it's professional. It's nice. It's calm, which is really.
It is. And it's clean.
Yes. Yeah. Very clean. And you may have seen this on a social media video that we put out, but we are in the home of WHOG, the Hog Radio. This is 95.7. So that's where we are in the studio where they come from. Exactly.
It's an old building that's been repurposed, which I also love everything about that because we don't want to throw away the old, it just needs its proper place and to be upgraded. And they've done that beautifully here. And there's a great, great vibe. So we hope, you're going to feel that through the airwaves because we're feeling loved and supported. And I don't know if I ever told you this, Sean, but years ago it's probably about 7 or 8 years ago, I saw Harry Connick Jr. He was in town and man, I had incredible seats. It was a spiritual experience, really, seeing Harry Connick Jr. And he said it was, not long after Dr. Phillips had been built, that Performing Arts Center downtown Orlando. And he said, a nice green room doesn't really help us play better. He said, but it helps us feel supported for our art. And I get that.
100%, I get it.
Yeah. Right. And so it's like, I love my home studio. You love your home studio, but we felt like this could elevate the experience, not only for us, but for our listeners, because the sound will be better. Our vibe is easy and good. We're supported. There's a refrigerator. There's a coffee maker. There's free snacks. There's a beautiful conference room we're going to be able to use for our team meetings. So anyway, friends, we hope you're feeling this and glad to be a part of it. It's special.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And I'm grateful to be a part of it. Well, friends, let's take a look at what's happening this week in spiritual history, where we are asked, what if caring for the earth is actually a spiritual practice? So we begin this Friday, June 5th, with World Environment Day. Across many spiritual traditions, caring for the natural world is seen as an act of reverence and gratitude and responsibility, really. And honestly, it feels like a good reminder right now to sort of slow down, maybe step outside, take a nice deep breath, and reconnect with the world that we are all supposed to be shaping and taking care of together.
Beautiful, beautifully said. Yeah.
Up next, we're reminded that sometimes the most spiritual thing we can do is to have the courage to change.
Amen.
I'm going to say that one again. Sometimes the most spiritual thing we can do is have the courage to change.
That's a show title. Let's
that is
keep
good.
track of that.
Yeah. So on Friday, June 5th, many Christian traditions observe the Feast of Saint Boniface. This is often remembered, who is often remembered for helping to bring people together during divided times.
Yeah. I don't know why we always laugh at these, but it's like people have always been divided.
Yeah, always.
I mean, it is worse now, I feel, but yes, people have always been divided in some way.
Yeah. So what stands out about his story is a reminder that courage isn't always loud. Sometimes it's simply being willing to grow, to rethink old patterns, and to choose connection over fear.
Mm-hmm.
Choose connection over fear.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And then what if the sacred has been showing up in ordinary moments all along? This Sunday, June 7th, many Christians celebrate Corpus Christi Sunday. This is a tradition centered on presence and the idea that the divine isn't far away somewhere, but right here, right now, in our everyday life.
Yeah.
That comes up for us in shared meals or simple moments of laughter together, or, basic human connection.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe keep that in the back of your mind as you move throughout your week this week. Our Just for Fun this week is National Donut Day. This is Friday, June 5th. So if a donut mysteriously shows up, I know, right? Let's talk about food just for a second. It makes me feel good. So if a donut mysteriously appears in your path this week, maybe don't overthink it and just enjoy it.
Sometimes.
You got to do it.
Yep.
We're only here for so long.
I know.
Sometimes a donut is not such a bad thing.
It might keep you, from hurting other people. Yeah, eat the donut. Exactly. If that's what you need. Yeah.
Eat the donut, take the trip, do all the things.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
My friends, your journal prompt for this week: where in life do you need to slow down enough to notice the godly gifts in your life?
Oh, beautiful.
Where in your life do you need to slow down enough to notice the gifts from God in your life? With that, my friends, this is episode 415 of Experience of the Soul, where we are asking, does God exist?
Great intro there, Sean. And I love all the things you bring to the show. I love this week in spiritual history. And what I do love about it is, I know I share the titles, but I still continue to be amazed at how they dovetail each other in terms of my intention and my, what I feel Spirit's really guiding me to bring and what's happening in the world. And this is what I love about the way Spirit works and the way Spirit speaks. I'm thoughtful today about the show, and I never want to minimize our spiritual questions, but because this spiritual question has been answered for me so long, I jokingly said to Sean, this will be a short show because the title is, Does God Exist? And I said, well, in a word, yes. Okay, blessings on the journey. We're done. But we try to have fun with some of these ideas. But it is a wonderful question. And I remember asking that question as a youngster, and I think we all at some point, ask that question. And it seems to me that so many people right now are looking for answers. And so if you're new to our show and you've been wondering, does God exist? I don't want you to have to even listen to 30 minutes. The short version, the short answer is yes. But I don't want you to just believe me. I want you to find out for yourself. And I believe the true teachings of the world are empowered teachings, where we empower you to find your own answers. And I'm disturbed at how so many spiritual leaders, ministers, pastors, priests will say, God told me to tell you. And in other words, you should do this and you should do that, because it is a place of authority that I don't believe belongs to anyone but you. That said, as a spiritual leader myself, do I have a good God connection? Yes. I work on that connection daily. But I don't want you to just believe what I say. I want you to investigate that on your own. I want you to have a real experience of this, that you will know undeniably that, yes, God does exist. I also want to even back up a little bit and say many of us were taught about God in a way that's very, very limiting. Most of us know of God from Hollywood or from the church of our childhood. That said, more and more people that I meet over the years were not in church at all. A lot of people that seem to be attracted to my ministry are either former Catholics, a couple former Baptists, but a lot of people that are attracted to my ministry are people that have been in recovery, who have not had church at all and are seeking a meaningful relationship with the divine. So that's what I offer in terms of the way I approach God and the way I approach your relationship with God, which we'll get to in the next show about can I know, I can't remember the exact wording of the title, but I think it's can I know God personally, or can I personally know God? So does God exist? Is a great question to ask and sit with. Does God exist? The God most of us were taught about. If we were in church, I'd say, raise your hand if you were taught that God was on a big throne in the sky. And every hand, I'm sure, would go up. I was trying to think of the name of the actor who's played God. It was probably Charlton Heston. He also played Moses. So Morgan Freeman. Yeah, right. Well, if you saw the movie The Shack, there was a lot of response about a lot of negative response because God was a black woman. I don't know if you remember that, which I absolutely loved. I absolutely loved it.
Oh, and George Burns.
Oh, George Burns has been God. That's true. And the movie, Oh God. Yes. Yeah, that was George Burns and John Denver. And so these questions, though, I'm thinking that if you're in your 20s, which a lot of people are in your late teens, early 20s, you say, who is George Burns? So I'm aging myself here, but gosh, that would be a great thing for you to do is experiment learning about people's the way different people view God. And it's different in different religions. It's different in different times in our culture. It is different in other countries. And I saw a podcaster the other day, interestingly enough. I like his ministry a lot. I'm spacing on his name right now, Sean, but I'll give it to you later. But he was talking about how in the early days of Christianity, there were all different brands of Christians. There were Christians that were Gentiles, Christians that were Jews, that and there were really different ministries and different way of viewing Jesus and even God, but what they aligned with and what they were able to connect on was Jesus. And there wasn't infighting. There was a connecting around Jesus as a central figure. So as you start to do your own work around God and how you view God and how you know God and does God exist, you're going to find that Jesus and God are used almost interchangeably, even though Jesus himself did not. He referred to God as Father. We are told he is the Son of God. And Jesus said, I of my own self can do nothing. It is the Father within me that does the work. So I want to encourage you on your journey to know if God exists. I don't want to give you all the answers. But what I started to say is begin to do some thoughtful and slow investigation. And I want to ask you to consider, was there a time in your life where you felt some kind of help and support that you couldn't point to a person, or a living individual that you felt supported? Maybe you had the courage to do something. Maybe you had the will to try something new. Maybe you had this feeling of love toward another person that Like a lot of times people tell me when they give birth or when their partner gave birth, whatever, in a married situation, if it's the husband and not the wife, or a partner and not the one who's giving birth, they say, I felt like my heart exploded. And that's how I felt at my son's birth. There was so much love and joy. And I said, this is God love. This is such a pure energy. So I want you to investigate, yes, other religions. Watch some fun movies. Look at Christian denominations, and then look at religions of the East. See how they view God, because we've talked about this on the show before, and this is a good show to remind everybody. We've talked about our search for God as a big wheel, that the center or the hub of the wheel is God, and that all the spokes all the way around that wheel are our different denominations, our different cultures, our different ways of knowing God. But my friends, worldwide, this presence of something supernatural has been known, revered, worshiped, and yes, even feared by cultures of every kind all around the world. Our Native American cultures have known God in a very beautiful, mysterious, and yet specific way. When the settlers came to the U.S., they didn't understand, the indigenous people's way of connecting with God. They said, no, you don't know and understand our God, our way. And, Native people say, okay, yeah, we like your God, but we also like the rain God, the river God, the corn God, So my friends, think about this, that as you search to know if God exists, that you are doing something that is very, very special. That's also very, very human, because in our humanness, we are seeking to be and know more. In our humanness, we are seeking to know and be more. And how we do that is through knowing God. So I want you to do some investigation on your own. I want you to investigate, have you known God? Have you felt a presence and not known what that was? Because I don't want you to compare what you've been told God is with your experience and say, well, my experience isn't enough. I don't want you to be overly guided by outside opinions about what God is. I want to share about my journey with God, because at different times in my life, God has felt very far away sometimes, and sometimes closer than my breath. And it made me weep. I was so close to God. That said, as my journey has grown and developed, my idea of God has been blown more times than I can name. What I understood in the spiritual world has expanded and it's taken me to a place of the unknown. And so the reason I'm saying to you to do your own work and develop your own understanding is that this will truly be a gift to you. I don't want to give you a dogma to follow. I want to point you in the right direction. I want to shine a light on the path and let you walk forward. Because until you do that, you will always be searching for God in other people. You will always be searching for God at the level of the mind and by what you are told. And I want you to know God. I want you to know God personally. I want you to know without a shadow of a doubt that God exists. I mentioned Carl Jung. I can't remember if I mentioned this statement or not, Sean, but we talked about Carl Jung recently in a show, and he had a very in-depth relationship with God. And I have found it so interesting to watch how science right now seems to be kind of, in some ways, certain aspects of science try to edge God out. And in another way, science is proving what so many mystics have known for centuries in terms of quantum physics and the quantum entanglement of like little tiny protons and stuff in cells. But Carl Jung, Albert Einstein, another incredible mind, all viewed their relationship with God as the most important aspect of their lives. And, when Einstein even was questioned, he said, I want to know God. The rest are just details. And Einstein believed that it was from his connection from God that he would get these, divine ideas and awarenesses to try new experiments, to try, to break the boundaries of what we knew about the planet in which we live, the environment in which we lived. And Carl Jung, as I started to say, towards the end of his life, was asked about his relationship with God. And the interviewer said, "Do you believe in God?" And he said, "Belief? I know God. I don't need to believe." And so, my friends, I want you to have that. I want you to have that. When I was a little kid, I grew up in the South, and in the South, everybody had a church. There's two questions you're asked when you grow up in Georgia, when you meet somebody new, and that is, were you sprinkled or dunked? And that tells us everything we need to know about your church, your religious affiliation, and even how you view God. I don't think I knew a real Jewish person until I was probably in late middle school or high school when we did what was called a Seder supper. And it was the opinion of a pastor that we needed to learn about, other cultures, and also reminding us that Jesus was a Jew and in fact celebrated all of these things, and that it was incumbent upon us to know. So in my childhood, I had a wonderful foundation of spirituality, but I wasn't taught that I could really have direct communication with God necessarily, even though we prayed in church, even though we prayed at meals. It wasn't until I went to school at the Baptist school that they said things like a personal relationship with God. Well, my experience thus far was feeling like God was way, way out there, and I was way, way down here. And I felt like I couldn't do enough to please God. Like maybe I couldn't reach God. Maybe I couldn't know God because I didn't know if I was good enough. That was my feeling. And of course, in church, we said things like, "I'm not worthy to gather the crumbs from under thy table." That was one of the creeds we said around communion and things like that. So I had spiritual and church, kind of the spiritual ideas from the church of my childhood basically said that, we're all so flawed and that we have to work really hard to please God. But the more I studied, I learned something different. So when I was in the children's choir, and Sean, I know you sang some in kids choir. I mean, we both. I remember we found out we were both in kids praise. Yeah.
That was like a moment for sure. Salty the songbook.
Yeah. And for me, the church was so important, growing up, because it was small and our church didn't open without the Andersons. So, but there was a song we did in children's choir, and I know it to this day, because when I would go through a hard time and I would feel like God was really far away, because as a kid, that was the only way I knew to say. I couldn't say, "Oh, I felt separate from God." What I know is I just felt alone. But the words of this little kid's song were pretty sweet. And I'm going to see how much I can remember. But this first part I know by heart. And it goes, everywhere I go, the Lord is with me. If I call upon him, he will hear me. I will be of cheer, for the Lord is near everywhere I go. And I would sing that over and over. There's another verse. He is with me day by day, but anyway, you get it. He will be my strength and say, okay. But even singing that, I still didn't always feel connected. Like I wanted to feel connected, but I didn't always. And so, I had the Methodist church saying one thing. I had the Baptist church saying a little bit of other thing. And in the Baptist church, the number one thing was to be saved, to commit your life to Christ, to accept Christ into your heart. And I had attended the Methodist church my whole life and had never heard those words, because really in the Methodist church, we were more about service. Yes, we were about loving one another. We were about loving Christ, but there was not this idea of accepting him into your heart. I just thought he was always there. So I was already at a very young age getting two different ideas of God. In the Methodist church, God already loved us. We were already good. And then the Baptist church came on top of that and said, no, you're flawed, you're sinful. And then I'm also hearing the creeds saying about how, I'm not worthy to gather the crumbs. So it didn't make me feel all warm and fuzzy towards God. We were really taught growing up to fear God. And so God felt very, very far away. But as my journey deepened, and it deepened through my nephew getting, he got what's called childhood leukemia, and I began praying. And that was what shifted my awareness and understanding of God, was trusting God, leaning on God, talking to God, asking for help. And I was deeply searching. I watched TV preachers. What was that guy's name? Was it Jimmy Swaggart? Yeah. Was that the guy who would do the oil? Yes. Yeah, he would say, if you send me even a penny, I'll send you an oil. Well, I did that. I'm like, I'm in, because my nephew was such an amazing soul, and he was only 5 years younger than me. I've talked about him on the show before, but I have to mention this in this show because his life was so important to me. Just, he was like having a younger brother, which was so great because I had been the youngest, and him getting sick just broke my heart. I couldn't imagine, life without him. To this day, I feel my family's never really gotten over the loss, because he did later die of leukemia. I was, 13 when he died, and he was 8, almost 9. But what had happened over the course of his illness was I had watched this TV preacher, and I had ordered the oil, like I mentioned, and nobody in the family knew it. I did this all on my own. This was all my little spiritual journey at that young age. And I would, at night when he was sleeping for a while, my sister, and he lived with us. So, it's my oldest sister's son. That's why we were so close in age, because there are so many kids that her son was close to my age. But so we shared a room for a time, and I would go in and I would give him a little oil right on his forehead, or maybe I'd rub a little of that special oil on his tummy. And, I would pray to God, and I would go with him to his doctor's appointments. And so, I couldn't understand why God would not heal him if I was doing all the right things. And it took me a long time to understand it, because I think I could have gone two ways with that situation. One is to believe that God is not real and God does not hear our prayers. But because I was praying so much, I was feeling the presence of God, But I just couldn't understand at the level of the mind why a kid like this would have to die. And we're going to talk about that at a later show as well, about why does God allow us to suffer. So what I know is that when I prayed, I had a felt sense of peace that would come over me. Even though I didn't know the outcome, I still had a felt sense of peace. I had an awareness that I was doing what I could, to help my nephew, but I also had an awareness that something out there was helping me. I couldn't say it was God, because my idea of God was a guy sitting on a throne in the sky, somebody I'm trying to please, somebody I'm not good enough, to even talk to. But in the prayer work, in the seeking to have healing for my nephew, what ended up happening is my awareness of God became very, very real. And even at the end of his life, some of the things that happened that were so powerful, it was so obvious to me that God was real. It was obvious in the way he knew what was next for him. It was obvious in the way he was calm and at peace in those last days. And my friends, we're talking about an 8-year-old child saying, I am okay. The angels are helping me. He heard the angels. I mean, it was so powerful. So it let me know at a very, very young age. I mean, I was, like I say, not even driving, that God and the spiritual realms were most definitely real. I did not experience, though, God up on a throne. I did not experience a God that threw down lightning bolts when I did something wrong. What I experienced was a God of peace, a God of love, a God of comfort, a God that was a sensation and an awareness. I experienced a feeling of serenity is really the best way I could describe it. And I could feel God in my nephew's body. I didn't have the words for it then, but I would feel an energy when I would put my hand on his belly or my hand on his forehead. I could feel a warm energy. So for me, this is God. God is not necessarily in the places of worship, even though God is everywhere. The God that people speak of is a God of the mind, not a God of experience. And so, my friends, please, please, please trust yourself and your journey to know that you have the power, you have the wisdom, you have the awareness to know God exists. And then, even as we're saying for our future show, to know God personally. I believe that this desire to know God is a part of our humanness. I think we have always wondered, is there something more? My answer to that is a resounding yes. My hope, though, is that you will do some of your own work in consciousness, that you will investigate your own awareness, and then even see if what you're thinking of as God, are you setting yourself up to fail because of this mental image? Because God is not a guy on a throne in the sky. God is everywhere present. God is in the air we breathe. It is in the very cells of our bodies. And yet God is as vast as the heavens themselves. One of my favorite quotes about God is a circle whose center is everywhere and whose circumference is nowhere. I keep coming back to that in my ministry lately because I just hear so many people putting God in this tiny little box. And my friends, God is bigger than you can ever imagine. But God can be experienced. God can be known. And I want you to find out, my friend, on your spiritual journey of your soul that is moving forward, of your soul that is wanting to grow and to know God, that God is everywhere present, God does exist, and God very much desires to know you because it is the very aspect of your being that you are made from God. You are always in God, and when you die, you go back to God as source. So, my friends, know we're lifting you up in that, and the show is here to support your spiritual journey. And we really have a great deal of trust in you. We know that at the very level of the soul that you are holy. We believe about you that, in fact, you are a sacred being, and that this desire to know God is a desire of the heart and soul to know more, and yes, finally, to be more. So, my friends, we support you in that. We lift you up in that. We are sending you our love and blessings. We always hold our listeners in prayer, and of course, our world in prayer, that as we can know God and know God exists, that it changes life for the better, and that we don't feel lost and alone, but we feel connected, we feel supported, we feel at peace, and we feel secure in this. So, my friends, we thank you for joining us. We thank you for all your support that keeps us on the air, and we lift you in the light of God for all good. Blessings on the journey, my dear friends, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Experience of the Soul with Cynthia Alice Anderson. If this message resonated with you, we invite you to share it with someone who might need it today. This show is made possible by listeners like you, and we're grateful for the community that helps keep these conversations available to all. You can learn more or contribute to the show at cynthiaaliceanderson.com/donate. Produced by Kilgore Creative and a production of the Soulworks Group Incorporated. Until next time, take good care.
My journey with Jesus has been beautiful, has been wonderful. It has been at times intense and at times distant. I want to bring you along the journey with me in hopes that it may illumine your journey on the path to Christ consciousness. I am going to share my journey as I always am seeking to deepen my spiritual connection with Jesus the Christ. So, my friends, I look forward to joining you in class with the Yeshua Dialogues coming up on Monday, June 8th. Blessings on the journey, my friends.
A live one-night only online event. Register today at cynthiaaliceanderson.com.